friends. Welcome to World Build with us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty, and I'm here with Hierophant of the Hirsute, Chris Prunty, along with our continued special guest, Daniel Quinn. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Doing well.
Not sick
Great.
yet.
Not sick.
Yeah. We hope that you're all doing well and staying safe in these trying and troubled times of the quarantine. We are all recording remotely today, which is just as well because we actually are recording an interview with Dingo from the YouTube channel Dingo Doodles. And we're going to go ahead and cut straight to that right now. Hello, and welcome to World Build with us. We are here with Dingo from Dingo Doodles. Dingo, why don't you go
Hello.
ahead and give an introduction to those of us who might not know you very well?
Hi. I'm Dingo from the channel Dingo Doodles on YouTube, and mostly my YouTube consists of me telling a retelling of a D&D campaign I went through in 2017 to 2018 called Fool's Gold, and now I'm reanimating it episodically. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of craziness. It's got wild magic in it. My very first episode that I posted online was me releasing a Tarrasque with karaoke. So you can kind of leave that up to your imagination on how that happened. So, yeah, it's been quite a ride. So, yeah, I'm up to episode 13. But actually, there's 14 episodes because there's like a Halloween thing. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I do.
Cool. And for those, nope, never mind. I'm going to go ahead and skip that. Chris, why don't you go ahead and start us off because I know that you've been holding in the fanboy within you.
I have submerged the fanboy within me, and I've killed the child. But anyhow, as far as questions that I have, I'm a fan of it. But from what I've been able to gather from watching everything, in most of these things, you've been a player. You haven't been a DM. But I think I heard hints that you have DM before.
Yes, yeah, I've DM'd for about 3 years now.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. That's one thing that really comes across in this series thus far is that, you know, even as a player, it sounds like you have a lot of opportunities to add a lot to the story and add a lot to the world building. Do you
Definitely.
want to, go ahead and tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, definitely. Well, the fun thing about our table, and I'm very thankful for the players I have, and Felix, who's the DM, is a fantastic DM, and pretty much we all work together to create the story. We don't leave it all to the DM to create the world because there's a lot of times where, as DMs know, they come to the table and sometimes they're not prepared. And when that happens, the Felix is just like, have at it, do what you want, and then we just kind of build and create, and it's a really good system. I'm very, very thankful I have a group like that.
Yeah, that's always very fun and cuts down on prep time and exhaustion.
In stress,
Yeah.
pure stress of it all.
With that, I actually had a question of your character, Sips and everything, has a lot of tables that it has to roll off of and
Mhm.
different things that happen with that. Was that like a collaborative effort, or did one of you come with it and be like, hey, would it be cool if I did this? Or
Usually when we create characters for a campaign, we are all sitting in the room together, and we kind of like talk about what we want to make and what kind of character. And yeah, the charts were very much like, hey, I want to be a wild mage, which it's not. It's 3.5. 3.5. I don't really like their wild mage, so we kind of homebrewed it to hell, where it's a sorcerer. It is a sorcerer class, and we just put wild chart on top of it with a curse chart. So yeah, that was, I just looked up online a curse chart I liked, and Felix also looked up a wild magic chart that he liked, and we just kind of put it together and made that thing. Made Sips. So
yeah. Rob, I know that you're not a fan of different charts and randomization in some of your stuff, but that actually made me create like this entire failure chart for random stuff that could happen just based on like kind of the karaoke event of like you don't expect something like that to come out of dancing lights.
I don't mind randomization. It's just that I find needless chart rolling to be kind of annoying. But when it comes to wild magic, I think that it's so thematic that it's actually really appropriate for that type of character. It just, for me, like me being the very kind of anal person that I am, I just
Yeah.
don't feel like I could ever deal with like that much chaos in my life, you know?
You have to let go. You have to like you have to I'm a very chaotic person. So it was very easy for me to fly right into wild magic and stuff like that because I just love going like, oh shit, what's gonna happen now? You know, it's just like that really exciting moment of just being like, how did I fuck up this time? Because you got to solve it, and I love that stuff. But I know a lot of people have a hard time when it comes to dealing with wild magic, and to be a wild magic player, it's very much you have to just accept the chaos and really really lean into it and enjoy it. So yeah.
So speaking of that chaos that you like deal with as it arises, since you're retelling like the campaign that happened over that past year, like how do you recapture? Because I feel like when I'm watching them, I feel like it's literally happening as I'm watching it. How do you recapture the magic of that moment?
Okay, so I guess a lot of it's just me thinking back to those moments of like what we felt and how it was. I also constantly talk to my friends that were in the campaign with me about being like, oh, remember that time? I was like, oh god, I was so upset. Or like you know, like you really just like we keep rehashing it. And I also have Felix's notes that from that campaign. So I just kind of like I read through it and go down memory lane, and I pull a lot of the emotions that we felt in the campaign, and I bring it out. I have a background in like in art and writing as well, so I'm using this whole YouTube experience to try to test that and see if I can make people invested in something that's happened like way ago, right? And by what you say, you know, like you said, you're feeling it like it's actually happening. Where
Mhm.
I mean, last episode at episode 13 or so, that happened in God that was like in I think January of 2018. That's when that happened. So it's, you know, yeah, I think trying to pull it out is difficult, but I'm finding a system.
I mean, understandable. I imagine that's like part of your thing as a storyteller is
Mhm.
trying to figure out the best way and the best story beats to kind of pick up on. And I
Yeah.
imagine that that translates pretty well to being a dungeon master or a game master in general.
Yeah, definitely. Like you have to tune into that and pull out pull out emotions that are very raw and very it's difficult. Like that's mostly what I can say is that it kind of translates together where uh DMing and this storytelling is just going hand in hand, and I'm learning so much on both sides that I kind of just use on both sides.
Yeah, so I haven't had a lot of time to read your webcomic or anything.
Mm.
I actually only in the recent few days did in kind of preparing for this, did I start to read it or anything. Uh, would you like? I know that you're gone into YouTube
Mhm.
as that format, but I think you answered the question of saying that you see yourself foremost as a artist, or do you see yourself as like a content creator?
I guess that's tough because it always changes. I think with being somebody who creates things and is an artist, they're always evolving and changing their styles. And like with comics, it was really a way for me to test out writing and comedy in general, and also color theory and art. So I guess I would be a content creator. I wouldn't be just an artist because you know there's writing in there, and there's um, especially with YouTube, there's now timing and voice acting now, which is, oh god, don't get me started on voice acting. It's um it's a beast in itself. So yeah, I would say I'm more of a content creator.
Hmm.
Speaking of identity in that sense, one of the questions we love to ask people like who join our world building podcast is a little bit about your origin story.
Mm.
and I was watching some of what were they called? Let's see, it was the life stories, right? Those little kind
Mm.
of cute stories from your past.
Yeah.
How would you describe like your origin story? And you can take that question however you want, whether it's like from the career side or like just growing up with fantasy.
Oh, um, hmm. My origin story.
Yeah, like what made you the superhero you are today?
Yeah, yeah. I guess just a consumer of media, of growing up in a family that was all creative. Like my dad's a musician, my mom's a writer, and my sister went into animation. And I'm doing my own thing now, and I think being surrounded by those people at all times
Mhm.
was a perfect storm for me. It was like it's a perfect situation. My parents are super Star Trek fans and Lord of the
Oh
Rings
yes.
fans. It's just like Lord of the Rings and Star Trek was in my family at all times, along with like Shakespeare and history. And my mom does historical literature, and it's like all that stuff mixed together, I would say, is how I got to where I am now, for
Okay, I
sure.
think that's the heart of the three of us here: Star Trek, history, and Lord of the Rings. Each of us representing. Yeah.
Actually, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Actually, if you want to talk a little bit more about that, is that like I always like to talk about like touchstones in terms of world building and stuff like that. Are those your three major touchstones? Is that like
Yeah.
your three major influences?
No, I know it sounds strange, but no, they aren't, because I was surrounded by them, but that doesn't mean that I particularly took part as much. Like it was just
Yeah.
all around me at all times. Like I love Lord of the Rings, I love Star Trek, but like even with Star Trek, I can't remember the last episode I watched or something. It's been so long. It's just was around me at all times. But I think the things that have really built me. Um, what kinds of media? I mean, yeah, Lord of the Rings, but I love Avatar: The Last Airbender. That was
Yes.
really
Yes, yes, yes. By all
wonderful.
means, go on.
Yeah, I absolutely adore that series. The way they told it, um, and how they had this beautiful mixture of like drama, but it's still a kids show. Like that's my bread and butter, you know. Anime, so like DBZ was a huge influence on me, and Sailor Moon, and Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh,
Um,
that's a good one.
yeah,
Brotherhood
yeah.
or the original one? Or
The
both?
original one when it was on TV, because you just like tune in and just be like, gotta watch that, or like Inuyasha.
Oh,
Oh
Inuyasha was.
man, Inuyasha.
Yeah,
That
Let's go
is
to bed to
taking me
that.
back to like 17-year-old me watching it on Adult
I
Swim.
know, I know. It's like your blast from the past. You're 2006 again, and you're like, oh god.
I know.
Will
Oh,
they or
oh,
won't they? I
Kagome,
don't
will they
know.
or won't they? Well, of course they're going to. It's just like, how many more shards can there possibly be? For the love of God!
Yeah, yeah,
uh, if we could go back to Avatar: The Last Airbender,
yes.
I think that Avatar: The Last Airbender is brilliant. When we did our episode on cities, one of the cities that I actually mentioned was Ba Sing Se, because I think
Mm,
that thematically Ba Sing Se is super intelligent, super creative,
yeah.
and like really shows some of the best aspects of Avatar's world building. What about Avatar: The Last Airbender, besides everything that you talked about previously, is so inspirational to you? Because I mean, again, I'm fanboying out about just that concept alone. So
Yeah, I mean, the like you said, the world building's so freaking great. Like how they had like the North Pole area, with all the ice and everything, and they built their entire city around that. Like that was so cool, um, and like just the way they use the elements for certain aspects, like when you would go to the where they did airbending, and it just like the whole cities were like built on those huge cliffs, and I just, oh yeah, it was so raw and beautiful just to see that in that show. Um and I also love the creatures. I loved how they made like weird mixes of things, and like the platypus bear and stuff like that. Like that was so cool. Like I love that. Yeah.
And then the one rare bear.
Yeah, yeah. They're
Certainly, you
just like,
mean
it's
it's
just a bear, and it's like, ugh.
it's so weird. Yeah,
Yeah.
one of my favorite little random jokes that fits the world so well.
Yeah.
How would you say? Because again, when you're going through your own creative process now, how would you say that your current, the previous influences that you mentioned have kind of influenced you when you're GMing or when you're making your old world, or is it a matter of you look to your players to kind of fill in most of that?
Mm, I don't know if uh, I don't really particularly look to my players as much. I definitely look to them to interact and build on it. I kind of like give them their little sandbox with some tools in it and be like, how's that going to work? And then they just kind of go for it. Um, but when it comes to like world building in my campaign, I look to a lot of things here. I look to a lot of nature and stuff here. Like I build using fauna and flora, and I build things astronomically huge, and then I kind of scale it down again. Um, but tying from other things, I don't really take as much from media. I mostly just think I just usually just look at things we have here, and I just kind of build them on. So
Speaking
Okay.
of world building in that sense, one of the things we like to ask people to come on the podcast too is um, when we have other creators who aren't necessarily doing RPGs, are
mhm.
there tips from the world building that you've done in RPGs, or even when you're putting together kind of the retellings of the campaign, like in your videos, that you think would carry over well to just storytelling in general?
Mm, mm. I think a real tip for me when it comes to storytelling and RPGs in general is to cutting down to the bare essentials, like to the bare bones. Because you can get really lost in your world sometimes, like in writing or when you're DMing in an RPG. Like it could be just so much. You start thinking about all the details and everything starts to cycle, and you kind of get like a big swamp of things, and it kind of becomes muddied and everything. And what I've really realized with even doing my videos is that you need to cut to the essential. Like, what is it that makes this world interesting? And like, cut it down to like 1 to 2 sentences. And that really helps me when I get lost in what I'm doing.
To
Both
cut to
sides.
the heart of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to have every blade of grass have a name and a 10-page backstory, otherwise
Yeah.
you'll.
Yeah. Everybody. Yeah. Or everybody's got a freaking language that you have to make. It's like,
Oh,
God.
God.
you really were a Tolkien fan growing up,
Yep.
huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. So speaking of leaves, we're gonna go ahead and name the first 7 leaves that were in the Hobbit village, and that'll chew up about 35 pages. So go ahead and
Bob Dombadil.
yeah, yeah,
Each of them have
exactly.
a certain scent, and yeah.
And a poem to go with it, dear
Yeah.
God.
Oh God, yeah. I think
Yeah,
we all respect Tolkien for
of
being a
course.
great storyteller, but I've always criticized him as a
Gotta
writer.
stop shitting
Yeah,
on him.
we're gonna shit on
No,
it.
I
Gotta
You
stop
really
gotta
shitting
do
don't.
it
on him.
though. It's
I
fair.
really, yeah. What are you gonna do? Come over and fight me during the quarantine? Go ahead.
Just you wait.
Yeah,
Sneak
just you
off
wait
on you,
until
which is
June
a terrorist
17th.
attack.
Yeah. Chris, go ahead. You had a question.
So, from being a player to becoming a DM, what was the most revealing thing, or the most shocking thing of like, oh, I didn't actually prepare anything, but you think I did? Kind of like, what was the most shocking moment of the transversing?
of being a DM. Like, what's the most shocking thing I've done? Or
Assuming that you went from a player to a DM,
Mhm.
what was like the shocking moment for that, or like what
From
changed as
transitioning
far?
from
Yeah,
a player to a GM.
yeah.
Yeah. I the really tough part for me was that I had to pay attention to all the players, um, all kind of at once.
Mm.
I was like, what are you doing? Then what are you doing? What are you doing? Where when you're a player, you just kind of like think of your one character and you can really get into depth with your character, which is fun and exciting. And you have a lot of like, ooh, I'm exploring, I'm having fun. But then when you're a DM, you're just like, oh God, I have to make sure that each of these players gets the spotlight and that they each are getting something out of this, like I really, when I build my campaigns and I build where they're going, I'm trying to tailor it to their needs and their wants and what excites them. Like one person's super into combat, and then the other person's super into roleplay, and the other person's super into, like, I don't know, crafting or something. You have to really mix those things together. Yeah, so it's that was the hardest thing for me, is just like, okay, well, I need to expand my brain to the point where I'm tuning into all these people.
So that I have to say, are you the type of GM who does a ton of prep, or are you the type of GM who does almost no prep and just improvs the most of it? Because I can tell you from personal experience, I do like a skeleton approach where I have like the bones of the world and just really rely on my players to kind of, when they're just talking, it's like, oh, I bet it's some kind of super demon. And then everyone else is like, shut up, stop giving him ideas on how to murder us.
That's definitely an aspect that I work with. Is I just want to know what's happening in the world. I create the world, and then everything else moves regardless if they interact with it or not. So I kind of like place the players in, and then be like, have at it, have fun. And I know what each NPC is doing at the time that they're doing things. So if they decide, oh, I want to go to the library, I know exactly what's happening in the library already. So I guess my prep is just like you said, kind of like the skeleton of, like, I know what's happening in my world, and I mostly just want to keep it open and free. But I'm still learning what I need. I'm constantly being like, either this is too much or not enough. I'm still trying to find that middle ground for myself.
Yeah, finding that sweet spot is like kind of one of the hardest things to do, I think, in to be like creative or a GM or something like that, is to find out exactly what you need and how you kind of need it. And that brings me to my next question is, can you tell me about a time when you were GMing where you had something prepared or you had something that was ready to go and then your players just took it in an entirely different direction? Because some of those moments for me are some of my favorite moments in role play.
I just recently had something happen. Actually last week. And I'm pretty good at telling where my players are going to go, because I know what my players like, and it's not railroading in the way of like I literally go, hey, here's this thing, save this town, and they'll usually do it, because they want to. There's something intriguing, there's something exciting about it. And last session I was kind of wanting to just throw in something kind of exciting and fun, and then they just fucking grabbed onto it and ran away, and I was just like, well, crap, now all my other planning is completely out the door. So what happened was, right now they're in a city that they don't know who murdered a doctor or something. And so there's like this mystery or whatever, and in this town there's kind of like this infection going around, and there's a lot of tension, and there's like riots going on, and there's a lot of people pointing fingers. And what happened was, at the time, there were some people rallying outside of the precinct, like the sheriff's office, and a fire broke out, and the place completely lit on fire, and everybody's like, oh god, oh god, oh god. And I said, okay, we'll roll a perception check, or we're doing 3.5, so spot check. And they spotted a guy up on the roof that they have previously seen before as one of the bad guys in like the overall plot, like huge plot. And I kind of threw him in there just for fun, just to fuck with them. And but he's kind of like he's not like the big bad or anything. He's like one of the underlings, and they'd fought him before and everything. And I was just like, fuck it. This seems like an interesting spot to put him, so I put him there. And he is I do a lot of homebrew, and he is a fire elemental, but his entire body is made out of steel. So he fights the way he like heats up his body, and he like fights people with it, and it's like hot metal kind of fighting. It's fun. But he
It
started
sounds
the
very
fire.
cool.
Yeah, thank you. Um, he started the fire, so I kind of forgot that one of the players has teleport, and they just like teleported up there, and I was like, well, shit, there he is, and so they got into a fight with him, and they managed to take him down in 3 rounds. And this guy is really strong. Like he is definitely like I think they're level 8, so he's like a CR 8, somewhere around there. Like he can definitely kick their butts, but he kept rolling like 5s and 6s, and they took him down in 3 rounds, and like completely they had handcuffs that could work against his metal and fire that I totally forgot about, and they just, oh my god. Okay, so they just took this guy down, and now they're interrogating him, and completely forgot about the entire thing that was going on in the city. And now I'm just like, well, great, now I have have this guy is now being held captive by these guys, and they don't know what to do with him because he can constantly heat up his body, so they can't really touch him. So right now that's kind of happening in my campaign. So that's
That
that's that's a off the rails thing, but that's my fault because I put in something that was intriguing, and of course I was thinking like, well, they could fight him, and then maybe do that, but they completely just were like, fuck this town, we're gonna go and we have this bad guy now. So yeah. So
No,
yeah.
but that's always where it always starts, right? Like that's where it's like, okay, and now this crazy thing is about to happen because we decided to go left with it, and you're
Hmm.
of course like, yeah, no, fuck it, that's where it's going now, and we're gonna make it happen.
Yeah, yeah, and the big thing is they have like a thing they have to go to um the next day that's supposed to be like kind of like their investigation. uh it was kind of leading up to the next day, and now they have this guy, and they're like, well, we can't leave him. So it's just like, well, okay. I guess you're gonna miss that thing then. So yeah, but yeah.
Isn't always the fun? Isn't that where always the fun is though,
it
right? We're
it is, and I'm very excited to see what they do with this guy because he's hard to keep, so I'm not sure how they're gonna handle him. So
yeah.
but I'm leaving it up to them.
And who knows? I mean, there could be like an extended sequence where he escapes and they had to catch him again. He escapes, and then maybe that's the kind of reputation that he has. They just are really slippery, really impossible to kind of keep around.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and also like I use my world is very like the world I've built without going into it is very much elemental, planar based world. And I used like his body is, like I said, made out of steel, and he has fire elemental on the inside. So at one point they were planning to be like, maybe we'll just throw him into a lake, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, you might kill him that way, but also in my brain I'm like, if you heat up steel and you put it in water and it's not properly tempered, it can crack. So in one way that could technically mess up their whole thing. Like I'm just using the elements of the world and the body of just being like, that you could fuck over right now if you want to, you know? So yeah.
Yeah. Chris, you had a question?
Well, yeah, I really like when nemesises or villains kind of come up a little bit more organically,
Hmm.
especially when you're just like, oh, like I've had villains that are created just at the fact that people have rolled plenty of like ones to not kill them, and then suddenly like, I will eventually kill this person. I don't care how much time I have to dedicate it to. Uh, which, yeah, hunting down this person sounds like that, but are there just any other moments that you have where the roll of the die totally derailed the campaign or like changed a fork in the road in a big way?
um Unfortunately for me, um I've only been DMing for about 3 years, and most of the time everything seems to line up naturally with my players. However, if we go back to what I'm doing right now on my YouTube channel
With Fool's Gold.
with Fool's Gold, there is the episode I just launched, which is about the potato girl.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So if anybody's not well known on that thing, it's pretty much what happened is one of our players sold a very poisonous, well, sold a poison to this little girl, and also in jokingly gave her a potato. And what she did is she fused them together is now using it as a freaking weapon against people, and is just a big bad guy that now we're dealing with. And it was funny because he's a great DM, and what he does is when he creates a new NPC, because this girl was completely random, like just like we were selling our wares, and then he was like, who's gonna come up to your booth? Oh, okay, it's a 10-year-old girl. And then he rolls to see on a percentile dice on well, first he makes up a motive in his head. So it's like, this girl wants to become a princess. Well, how badly does she want to become a princess? And then he rolled a 99. So he was like,
Oh my god.
she really wants to become a princess. And that instantly switched his mind mode into, oh, this bitch crazy. Like, this one is going to be evil as shit. So it was just the dice roll that determined that she was going to be completely evil and would do anything to become a princess. So that's what led to the creation of the Potato Girl.
Wow. There's something about that serendipity that I think comes across like in the episodes I've seen. In particular, we were talking about the Vine one that kind of shows that you have like this control over comedic timing. How do you? So could you get so for other creators who are out there trying to accomplish similar things, like what are some tips that you could give them to achieve that level of control over the situation?
Are you
With
talking
comedic
about like
timing.
with comedic timing?
Yeah,
Okay, so
exactly.
I mean, if you can definitely tell from like my very early videos that I was trying to learn comedic timing,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of times where I just didn't hit it. Um, and it really is practice. It's really about feeling when you're putting out content, and you listen back to it and you go like, why does that not hit right in my chest? Like, you're just watching it and then it's like, that doesn't really work. So what my tips and tricks for people who are really starting to get into it and want to learn about it is watch other media that has perfect comedic timing and really break down the joke and count the seconds. Like, count how long it took for them to be like, there's the joke. It really, you start to learn about how it feels, and eventually it just becomes a muscle that you use.
Yeah, I think with anything, it comes down to practice, 10,000 hours, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And I have a question. You said you're using 3.5. Is that Pathfinder or 3.5 proper?
D&D. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. So that's actually the edition that I started playing. Well, 3.0 technically, and then I rolled into 3.5. I
Hmm.
was mad because I had to buy the 3 core books like twice within 6 months of each other.
Yeah.
But 3.5 is actually one of my favorite systems. It's like super, super crunchy, but it has like the coolest classes.
Oh no, and it really goes in depth with things, which can really help sometimes when you're like, how would that work? And then it's just like, there's DCs for that, and it's like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. And let me ask you a very serious and very controversial question.
Mm.
How do you feel, or what are your thoughts and feelings on the Book of Nine Swords?
No comment.
No. Oh, man. What does that mean?
No, no, no. Um, I mean,
Accept it.
I don't particularly have one. No, I don't.
Okay. All right.
No,
That's fine.
no.
The only reason I bring it up is because the Book of Nine Swords is like one of the most notorious 3.5 supplements out there. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
let's try and take like sword fighters and turn them into like Soul Calibur anime fighters that are on par with like magic users.
Oh
And
lord.
yeah,
Yeah.
as someone who absolutely loves like martial classes and fighters and stuff like that, I read that book and it was like, this is a revelation. This is exactly what I wanted. And then everyone else is like, oh, you can just totally break that like within 5 seconds of playing
Well,
the game.
it's, I mean, it's all about like, I don't know. I mean, I think when you take a material that's, because I do a lot of homebrew. I do. I know a lot of people are against that, and that's totally fine, but you need particular players when it comes to homebrew to play it, because some people can really just take it and break it and use it to God knows what. But I think it's fine. Like, yeah, if you find something you're just like, um, that you like and it works and your DMs totally go for it, like use it, whatever, it's fine. I think it's great. I think that's the great thing about D&D is you can do anything. Like,
Totally.
you can do anything. So,
What do you? So you say you homebrew a lot. Can you tell us about some of your favorite homebrew stuff? Because I'm homebrew averse. Like I make my own settings and everything like that. But when it comes to mechanics and everything, I'm honestly skittish about
mm,
stuff. I'd rather reflavor certain things that are already within the rules.
hmm well, we do a lot of homebrew when it comes to like us like being a sorcerer or for spells, because I think at 3.5, because God, I haven't read 3.5 for a long time since we've homebrewed the shit out of it. But well, we took away I think there's we took away components because we weren't a super fan of keeping track of that. It's like you need this and that to do this kind of spell and stuff like that, because we would get lost. Like, we really wanted a simplified version, because you have to remember, when I started playing D&D, 5e wasn't out. Like, there was no simplified for more casting and stuff like that. And in our 3.5 campaign, we also made it that you have access to, if you're a sorcerer, you have access to all sorcerer spells in your level. You don't have to you don't have to be like, I only know 10 spells or something like that, because we wanted it that you could figure out what kind of spells you liked. You didn't have to commit right away. It was kind of the idea that I was like, well, I don't know what, let's say Sips. I was like, I don't know what kind of spells he would want, because I don't know what he would use in certain situations. And eventually I just had a standard of 10 spells I like to use over and over again, simply because I had to test them out and be like, no, I don't like that one, or yeah, I like that one, or something like that. And so that's the way we kind of homebrewed with like magic, which I know a lot of people would be against, but it was the way that we wanted to make it easier for ourselves, and we also really love the creativity of being able to go through the spell list and be like, I've never heard of this spell. Let's try it, Like, I didn't really want to commit.
Did you do you have any opinion on the OSR movement, since you're into homebrew, which is like the old school revival of games before third edition?
Uh well, what do you mean? Like, just bringing back like like Gygax kind of stuff, or what? Like,
Yeah, like it seems like there's been a big resurgence of the really old 80s systems and like doing a
mm,
lot of homebrew and kind
yeah.
of like working with that.
I mean, that sounds really awesome. I think people should
I think
try
you'd
new
really dig it.
systems. Yeah, I think it would be, yeah, it sounds freaking awesome. Like, people should just like go through and try to find systems they like, and tune them to the way they want to work with it, Like, we've
Yeah.
had I, my um my group we've never played a module. I've never played a module before, which I know is shocking for a lot of people, but um, like, I've never, everything's been mostly homebrewed when it comes to that stuff. Like, all the campaigns, all the storylines, everything, we've always done homebrew. So, um, for people to go into different systems and start to take things and mush them around just seems natural to me.
Yeah, I think that's not as uncommon as you might think. I know that the only thing that I've come close to running in terms of a module is I stole half of a level from an old dungeon magazine. And obviously you take elements and stuff like that and steal them and mash them in and try and cover them up as much as possible. But yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't think I've ever done an entire module from beginning to end. But I also don't think that there's anything wrong with doing it either way. I think as
No,
long as
no,
you're having
there's
fun.
nothing wrong with playing through a module. I mean, um, I think that's totally viable, and people, if you feel comfortable doing it, do it, go for it. It's kind of funny though, because because I haven't been playing D&D for super long. I think I'm coming up to year like 9, like 8 or 9. And when I started YouTube, I that's when I started to learn what modules were. Like, I had never heard of them before. I had never heard of modules before until, like, I was talking to Puff and Forest, and he was like, "Yeah, a module." I'm like, "What is that?" And he had, like, sit me down and, like, actually talk to me about that. And I was like, "That's what that is?" You know, like, I never heard of them before. And now I'm just learning that it's a, there's hundreds of them, and it's like, whoa, that's so cool. I love it that people are building worlds and sharing them with people.
People get paid to write adventures. How cool is that, right?
So cool. So cool.
One
we live
day
in such
I'll
a great
get there.
world.
I know. Like, I know that we live in boring dystopia and everything like that, but like when we live in a world where
Yeah,
people
right
can
now.
get paid money, yeah, exactly. When
Yeah.
people live in a world where they can get paid money to write D&D adventures, like that's, you got to be like, okay, there's one good thing in this hellscape of a world that we live in.
Positive outlook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got to. I mean, what else are you can do? Give in to the existential dread that's settling in right now as we speak?
Let it settle in.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
let it
I mean,
settle
in times like these, D&D is needed more than ever.
Yeah.
in. That is the wisest thing that's been said on this podcast, I can assure you.
If only more people played role-playing games, like they would. They. I think there's so many people out there who don't even realize how it could change their lives, like honestly and seriously.
We've
Mhm.
naturally self-quarantined for months.
Yeah. Well, actually,
Yeah.
Daniel, I do want to bring that up because, yeah, learning empathy through role play is actually
Yeah.
something that I think is really important to kind of focus on for just a
Mhm.
moment, because the amount of genuine emotion that you can evoke through role play is important.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people could benefit from understanding what it's like to be in a different situation.
It lets you try a different point of view, which I think is the most important part.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
You,
Yeah.
you can also work through a lot of your emotional issues
Mhm.
and flaws through D&D, and I didn't know that until it happened. And I was like, well, okay, I guess now I'm actually doing therapy through D&D. So
Yeah, that is, oh man, I think that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize and understand is, because there's the stigma of D&D, right? Where it's like, hey, nerds rolling dice in a basement. It's like, but also you're exploring different aspects of yourself and the relationships with those around you. And the level of emotional intimacy that can be created is intense and genuine. And like, is something that is, unless you're doing it yourself, can get kind of overlooked, I think.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's a nerd hobby and everything, but come on, there's like, I don't know. I think there's some genuine stuff here.
I'm not
Oh yeah, the
working through any
tools.
issues in my role playing. I don't know
I
what
mean,
you're talking about.
I have a friend of mine. Her name's Lizzie Stark, who did some writing about RPGs like in Nordic countries and how there it's like way more mainstream and like it's kind of breaks out of fantasy. That would be an interesting thing to check out too, because I feel like that's where it's become not a basement nerd dwelling activity.
Yeah,
Well, I think,
no, it's more social now.
yeah, I think that there's actually a growing trend of it being like far more accepted, which I accept myself. I think that's such a great thing to see.
Hmm.
Yeah. So with all that touchy feely stuff out the way, I'm going to go, we're going to go ahead and roll into the world build jam. Dingo, are you ready?
Sure, I've never done it before, so let's see how bad I am.
No, that's the thing. You can't be bad at it. It's that this is like one of the most fun things about it. So,
Yeah.
how this works is we're going to roll some random dice, and we're going to pick a genre between science fiction, fantasy, horror, the modern day, romance, or we're going to roll twice and combine two. And then we're going to pick a subject between an item, a monster, a place, a historical figure, an event, or again, we roll twice and combine the two. And then we create a theme surrounding madness, sacrifice, love, metamorphosis, pride and honor, the unspeakable, triumph, or hope. And then we create something based around all of those elements mixed up. Then once that's done, we throw in a twist, but we'll get to that eventually. So
Okay.
first things first, I'm going to go ahead and roll the genre. And the genre is romance.
Oh
Okay.
yes, again.
Okay, and then
Do I have to
we're
write
going
these things down?
No, don't worry about it. We got you. All right, and next we're going to do the subject, and that subject is going to be roll twice and combine the two.
Oh.
Okay.
Mm,
So, number 1. We have a monster and an event. Okay.
Okay.
And then now we have the theme. And the theme is going to be triumph. All right,
yeah.
Dingo. So
Okay.
we have a romance genre and we have a monster in an event, and the theme is triumph. So take those very vague and general ideas and combine them all into one singular thing. And because you're our special guest, you get to start with this whole world build jam. So, what are your initial
Premise.
thoughts?
So like I have to do my brain for a second.
It's totally fine. It's totally
Yeah.
fine.
A
Let me
process.
let me write this down so I'm not always asking you like what was it again? Okay, so romance.
And it's just a
And
premise too, you know.
yeah, romance is the premise, and then we have a monster,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have
A monster and an event.
Mm-hmm.
and an event, and then triumph.
Yes.
Yes.
Triumph. And that was it.
That's it for now. We're gonna throw in a twist, but only after we've kind of workshopped the basic premise a little bit.
So you're talking about some kind of like if I was gonna write like a story or something, or if I'm like, because world building I think of like environmental or something like that, but you're thinking
That's
more.
actually a good point. Like to us, world building is like any aspect
Yeah.
of a genre
Mm.
or story that is part of, like part of the world. So for example, in our modern day, right? A historical event could be the Bay of Pigs and the historical figure could be John F. Kennedy. And we often don't see world building in a historical lens, but that's kind of the idea. And so in your case, right, like we have an event and that
Could be
event
like a
could
great
be
famine, you know.
exactly. And then we have to combine that with a monster, which I mean, the only monsters that we have are humans and we kind of, I mean, you can do that, but let's go ahead and start it out. What do you have for a basic idea?
I mean, I think of romance as like, I mean, of course, everybody thinks of love and everything, and like two people being together or something like that. But I think with a monster, I think the romance of it is like the triumph of the monster, kind of like through maybe saving someone or uh, coming together in like a village that usually fears it. It shows that it's actually like a gentle beast, and in doing so it like becomes part of the part of the community, is like a triumph, kind of like a Notre Dame kind of situation.
Absolutely. That's actually a great place to start. And I mean, what's the event where this monster kind of gains acceptance and, triumphs over its bestial nature?
I think it would almost like maybe it protects the village from a bigger threat, like
Oh yeah.
a larger monster. And I think the monster itself had been, ostracized from the village. The village, is always like that thing in the cave, it's going to tear you up and steal your children. But then maybe something else comes along. Maybe it's man, maybe it's an actual like threat of uh, let's say like an army or something, like monarchy or something, coming into this village and trying to take it over, and the monster actually defends the village in doing so.
Yeah, kind of like a Godzilla situation almost, where it's
Let
like
them
people
fight.
once feared this thing and then now there's this kind of monarchy that's coming through and the only thing that's protecting this village is, this monster. And maybe actually now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it's a constant, right? Like maybe there are things that are happening pretty consistently that this is the only village that remains, you know, out from under the
Alive.
boot heel of this evil empire, right?
Yeah, it's
It
untouched.
could even be a revelation that they didn't realize all along the monster had been protecting them from this external threat until this event, when they realized, oh, that's the only reason why we're still surviving.
If I could,
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
if I could add
that's really
something,
fun. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say you could also, to play on the monster, the event, and romance would be romanticization of like the hunt of people trying to kill this beast,
Oh
and
yeah.
how it's like
Mm.
the knight slaying the dragon and everything. But it will screw them over.
So romance with a capital R, like it's a romantic kind of setting.
Yeah,
absolutely.
romance.
Cool.
Period.
Okay, all right. So we've got this village. It doesn't know that it's under siege because this monster is constantly protecting the village itself. Dingo, what kind of a monster do you see when you're thinking of this thing? Let's give it some like actual or metaphorical teeth.
Mhm. I mean, I think of this village as kind of being. I would think that this village would have to be quite hidden for it not to be touched so early. Like just in general for the army to be able to reach that place, and why it hasn't been like it can't be like a well-known place. And I'm thinking of this beast is kind of like something that stirs in a cave and is sort of like mm, covered in moss and mushrooms and things that are usually found in caves. So I would also say that it's probably got horns, like a minotaur. You know, like how like a minotaur is like a large hoofed kind of creature. I
Mm-hmm.
think of that, but like mix it with some moss and some.
Can we
That's
throw
neat.
in some? Can we throw in some Shadow of the Colossus as well?
Ooh.
Yeah, do it, do it.
All right. Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah, it's like a
All right. Sure.
gentle kind of beast, but everybody's so scared of it all the time. Maybe it is like one of the mountains, not the mountains, like one of the hills or something.
That's
Just like, does
perfect.
it blend into the environment? Yeah, it sounds cool.
Yeah.
Such big hands.
and maybe this idea is that it's viewed as so ferocious because of all of the fighting it does to keep these people safe, and so people are terrified of this thing, and they want to try and slay it in some way only because they see it fighting the outside world and fighting this kind of
They see
enemy.
bodies near its domain, but these are
Yeah.
the bodies of the warriors that have come to kill it from the Empire.
Yeah. Okay, I think that we've kind of come to the point where it's time to fuck everything up by throwing in a twist. What do you think?
It was aliens all along. Come on. It was
Yes.
All right.
Space.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and roll this d20. There's too many twists to say out loud, so I'm just going to roll and we will see what we get. All right, I got okay, now we have to say that cults are involved in some way. Okay, so how can we throw in some kind of a cult to this whole situation?
Well, where is the cult first? I guess that's the first question.
Well,
yeah.
that's a good question to start with, right?
Unless the cult like summoned the armies that are attacking.
Maybe they're armies of cultists in some way.
Yeah. Or maybe there's like or maybe the cultists are the ones who like point out to the villagers that this thing is actually trying to save them, because maybe
the cultists are good.
Yeah, the cultists could be actually worshipping this monster, but the villagers think that they're all like evil cultists.
What a great twist! That's awesome.
You fools! Don't you know that it is the beast that protects you?
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
And
that's
they're probably
brilliant.
all moldy and mossy, the cultists. They're like, oh, who are those weird cultists?
So
that
gross.
guy's got moss in his beard. Like you don't want to. Come on.
Meanwhile, the Empire's all prim and proper and just like, you gonna trust that guy? He smells like poop.
I'm just imagining an entire empire full of Gastons. So
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that's a good place to stop. I think that we've got. I think we've come up with a great scenario. Cool. Okay.
That's perfect.
That's really fun. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it.
That's really cool. That's fun.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm about to go into the rapid fire question part of this interview, unless anyone else has some questions.
I'll save them for the rapid fire part.
Okay. All right. So, Dingo, I have some quick questions for you. Number one, my wife wants to know: is cereal a soup?
I hate you.
No.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow,
It's the first
controversial.
no.
you
That is
have
the
no
first no,
idea
yeah.
how good that makes me feel.
All right. Number 2, what games are you playing right now?
Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course. And number 3, name someone who you'd like to plug who isn't yourself.
Oh, I would like to plug a YouTuber
Go ahead.
named Aiden, which is DAN, and he does D&D animations on YouTube, and he's always hilarious, and he's got great stuff.
Awesome. And any other questions before I ask her the final one?
Yes. So I wanted to know, you talked about having aspirations to write for TV in the future. If you could write for any TV show, any TV, any genre, what would you be writing for today?
Like if I could choose anyone that's going on right now or anything.
Yeah, producer comes to you and says, "Hey, we want you to write for us." And
Yeah, I'd love to write for She-Ra.
oh wow,
I love
that.
Yeah.
I love that one. It's really
That's
great.
great. Okay, and now the final question. Why don't you go ahead and plug yourself and tell us all about where we can find you and all that good stuff?
Yeah, sure. So, if you go to Dingo Doodles on YouTube, you can find my channel. And if you want to go to my Twitter, which is also at Dingo Doodles, I think if you just do at Dingo Doodles at like Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, you'll find it. And if you really are into D&D animated stories, then I got you covered. If you want to see an episodic adventure of my 3 friends or 5 friends and I, and along with my boyfriend who's the DM, telling a ridiculous story that involves a lot of ridiculous jokes about potatoes, rocks, and tons of wild magic, along with some emotional moments, then I think you'll have a great time.
Awesome. All right. Dingo, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. It's been real fun. I'm really excited about that scenario that we made up. And again, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for, having me. This was really fun. I'm not usually on podcasts, so this was a good way to stretch out my social legs.
I think we all need it in the time of COVID-19,
Yeah.
so that's totally fine.
Pretty much.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again, Dingo. Take care.
Yeah, no problem.
And that was our interview with Dingo from Dingo Doodles. We genuinely hope that you go and support her channel. If you haven't already, check her out. She's a lot of fun. All right. So what did you guys think about our time with Dingo? I mean, I had a lot of fun, and I love the idea of, like the fact that she is a 3.5 grognard like I was.
I think she had some really, really useful advice when it came to crossover between like RPGs and storytelling, because the tip to make sure you distill, the core of the story down to its bare essentials is like so vital in world building. So I thought that was great that she mentioned that.
Oh, not just world building, Daniel, but like everything. Like,
oh yeah,
who cares about the 7 leaves and what their names are and where they're from? If it's so fucking, and again, this is my main problem with Tolkien.
I hate you
is
so
that
much.
I don't care. Just get to the cool parts. Get to the parts that matter to me and are interesting to me. Like unless those 7 leaves are instrumental, cut that shit. Get the fuck out of here, Tom Bombadil, and let's get on with the actual the actual story.
Yeah, the thing is, like, look, we give Tolkien a pass, obviously, because he's the guy who started the whole concept of world building and fantasy. But the rest of us, we can't do that anymore. We can't do it anymore.
Giants.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Chris, what did you think?
I am very happy that soup and sanity prevailed, and that you didn't get someone who I wanted on here to say your heretical beliefs of salads.
Hey, look. I am completely neutral on the whole is cereal a soup thing. I'm just asking questions here, guys. I'm just throwing out the questions that my wife wants to ask.
Okay,
if you have a problem. Yeah. Wow.
Just asking the questions.
Yeah. I can't do an Alex Jones voice, but otherwise I would. Actually, I
I
haven't
did a
tried
good
it.
one
Maybe
right
we'll
there.
try it out later, but I don't want. Anyway, I'm not getting into that. Okay.
Into the bedroom. God, no.
Yeah. All right. Those were some really happy fun. And that actually leads me to something that is significantly less fun, which is as of next episode, we are ending the Land of a Thousand Gods. That's right. It's the apocalypse. Our next episode is going to see us stepping away from the Land of a Thousand Gods. We've been with it for a number of episodes now, but it's time to move on to greener, well, maybe not greener pastures. So, next episode, we're going to see each of us bring a different type of apocalypse to the Land of a Thousand Gods. And then after that, that's where you guys come in. We here at World Build with Us are hoping that you would be able to. We here at World Build with Us, we're hoping that all of you out there would be able to send us a prompt, and that way we can pick and choose the best ones and then world build based around your prompts. So if you want to figure out how a living demon spaceship would work and how we would build a world based around that, send us that prompt. If you want to know what a post apocalyptic world filled with kaiju and cultists would look like, send us that prompt. If you want us to explore different genres, subgenres, or just throw out some crazy shit, please send us that world. And remember that in order to send us your ideas for those world building prompts, you need to email us at worldbuildwithus@gmail.com, or you can tweet us in a DM or publicly at Let's World Build, and we'll be able to pick up your ideas and we'll do 2 to 3 episodes based around the best ones, or just the ones that we think are absolutely fucking batshit crazy, because that's fun too. And until next time, remember that we love you very much and have a good week.